Hey guys, welcome back to Primer Podcast. We have a special guest that's been with us once or
Before,
twice.
yeah.
Nathan Blake. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
So we're diving into a brand new series, Winning the War in Your Mind.
Love it.
All about taking control of, or letting God control our thoughts, right?
Yeah.
It's like pointing our thoughts back to God and not allowing the chaos that goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I love being here and love talking about this subject. I talk about it all the time in office with clients. Our thoughts are a big thing, is something that controls our behavior in life. And today, kind of what we're going to be introducing is this idea that we can interact with our negative thoughts differently, and maybe a place to start is talking about what negative thoughts are. You know, when you think of the word negative thought, what comes to mind?
Well, I know like my negative thoughts tend to be assumptions
Yeah.
and what other people are thinking a lot of times are my negative thoughts, and like not necessarily um something I've done wrong in the past or anything like that. A lot of times it's how I am assuming someone is feeling about me or an action that I took can make me go down a rabbit trail, go from point A to point Z pretty quick.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think of them as like, these are things that we end up believing about ourselves. So criticism towards ourselves, criticism towards others, fears about what might happen, fears about the world around us, the things that just kind of pop into our head. It could be about ourselves, about other people, about our performance, about how other people might perceive us.
Right.
So these thoughts that just kind of generate in our mind will often go unchecked. If you have a thought, that often leads to a behavior that you do in the world around you, and oftentimes we don't even pause long enough to question it. And in this first week, I think the encouragement is that we think about our thinking. And the author, Craig, he goes into this a bit in the first chapter, that we can begin to turn our attention to these thoughts. And in counseling world, we often call them automatic negative thoughts. This is, we are interacting with the world around us, and boom, we have an automatic negative thought about ourselves or what's happening in the world around us. And this concept in counseling comes out of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. And it is kind of one of the foundational theories that undergirds a lot of modern counseling. And it has some limitations, but one of the things that it begins to teach us is that our thoughts impact our feelings, which impact our behavior. And so part of the encouragement of this week, I think, is to begin being curious about the thoughts that we have, because those thoughts then impact how we behave and show up in the world around us.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And like, I also, one of the, I'll paraphrase it, but one of the phrases that the author talked about is how we can get stuck in the past.
Yeah.
And it creates this thought of, you have so much thought of what has happened that you can't even think about what tomorrow has for you, which can also, like, you may miss out with God's plan for you, not necessarily for your whole life, but like you're holding back what God has planned for you.
Oh, yeah.
And so like that's something that I've it's really taken to me, and it made me think of one of the sermons that Pete talked about on Sunday, is the 1 Peter 5 verse 6 says, humble yourselves therefore under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time.
Mm.
Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of that thought of, we tend to feel like we always have to hold the anxiety
Yeah.
and
Alone.
alone.
Mhm.
And
Because surely nobody else has the thoughts I have.
right.
Yeah.
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 And that can keep us in a stage of just panic. And I remember you and I were talking earlier.
Yeah.
The word war and battle
Yeah.
that is used
Yeah.
in the book multiple times seems very like chaotic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's but yet that's what we feel sometimes with our
Yeah.
anxieties. And I know the more we talked about it, the more I started viewing it as anxiety. Like you mentioned, anxiety is a part of life. We have to have it. You
Yeah.
mentioned, if
Yeah.
a bear is running at you,
Yeah.
you have to have
We really need anxiety to
Yeah.
help us decide, how do I survive this bear? Yeah. The idea of war, I think we often see it as our modern concept of war, that it's battle and might and strength and power. And one of the things that's interesting, that I think we're kind of reframing what we think of when we hear the term war or battle, because this battle is with curiosity and humility and connection with other people who are going through something similar. And that's a little bit different, because I think sometimes in the church, we don't always do a good job of teaching folks that anxiety is normal. Negative thoughts are normal. They're going to happen. And oftentimes when we think about war, there's a winner and a loser.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not careful, we perpetuate this idea that if you have any negative thoughts, you're losing the battle. That maybe you're not a strong enough Christian, or you're not praying enough. The reality is that the negative thoughts are going to be there. They're just cognitions that our brains create, oftentimes trying to keep us safe. If you look at a lot of the negative thoughts you have on a day-to-day basis, the root of it is fear. And we can't eradicate all negative thinking from our life. Our bodies, our brains need us to have a system in us that's on alert. But what we can do is change the way that we interact with those negative thoughts. That we're not failing if we have them. We're not failing if we walk into a room and we feel insecure about who we are. But I think what we can begin to do is think about our thoughts a little differently. Begin to be curious about them. Begin to create pause in our life, that before we just jump and act based on every single firing of our brain, we take a pause and be able to ask ourselves, is this what God would have for my life? How do I want to respond? Who is the person that I'm made to be? And how does that person want to show up in the world around me?
Right.
So a war of humility, a war of curiosity, rather than strength and might and willpower, and a battle that we fight with others around us, that we're not alone in this.
Right. Yeah, I think that the humble yourself, like in First Peter, that said, "Humble yourself before God." I think that has a lot to do with it, because I know I've admitted this multiple times that I'm a control freak,
Yeah.
and so humbling your thoughts to God
Mm-hmm.
is hard for those of us that are the ones that feel like we can figure it all out
Yeah.
without God.
Yeah.
And so it's humbling yourself. I love that word, of because that's something I have to continue to remind myself
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
And because like you said, walking into a room, it's okay that you're anxious.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I'm anxious with walking into a room, or a lot of people, if I'm anxious about doing something,
Mhm.
speaking or something like that, a lot of times I forget to pray
Oh, yeah.
because I go into the control mindset of, and so, but I've learned that if I will slow down
Yeah.
and pause
Yeah.
and remind myself that that this feeling is okay,
Yeah.
but if it overwhelms me, if it controls me from and
Yes.
stopping me
Then you can't show up
going
how you want
forward,
to.
right?
Yeah.
Because like in past, I would like if that anxiety built up, I'd just say, "Oh no, I can't do that,"
Yeah.
because I didn't feel like I felt like my anxiety was going to stop me all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I would only allow myself to get to here on my own strength.
Yes.
And but I like the thought that you said, that pause. And I mentioned something to you the other day. It was like when I first immediately think of war, battle, I think of the chaos of war,
Yeah.
like what we see now. But then I mentioned to you the thought of like the Revolutionary War, where they paused. Like there was a time for
You got
each
to
of them.
reload the musket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I think of it in that sense of that, like taking that pause when we do have those anxious moments.
Yeah.
And to pray
Yeah.
is what I'm learning to do.
Yeah. I have an example that might help folks kind of frame how our thoughts and feelings and behaviors are connected. So let's take that same situation where you walk into a room full of people and maybe you need to present something. One of your intrusive or automatic negative thoughts might be, I am not as intelligent as the other people in this room. Now, when I have the thought, I'm not as intelligent as other people in this room, that then makes me feel anxious.
Right.
I start to get nervous, right? That populates other thoughts like, well, what if I say something embarrassing? Or what if I mispronounce a word? Or what if I say something that they don't agree with?
Yeah.
Are they not going to like me, right? And then what comes from that is that might impact the way that you show up in the room. So you may notice that you don't interact with people, or that you just kind of stay quiet in the corner, or that you get done with your presentation and jet off as quickly as you can. When in reality, it might be really helpful, or it might be more authentic for you to interact with people that you are presenting to and to have conversation about what you've presented. If we're able to start being curious about our thoughts, then it creates this curiosity about, oh, I'm having the thought that I might be less intelligent than the other people in this room. But it's just a thought. And we're going to get to later in later podcasts, how do we begin to reframe that thought? And I think the first step in this is curiosity and noticing that we don't have to hang on to every negative thought that comes our way. One of the metaphors I use in session a lot is it's as if you're sitting on a riverbank and you're looking out at the stream that's running before you, and you see a cardboard box in the river. Well, your mind sort of immediately goes, well, goodness, there's a box in the river. I wonder where it came from. I wonder whose box that is. And you have a choice. Do I kind of take notice of the box, maybe have some curiosity around it, learn from the box what I need to, but then eventually let it pass on by me and go down the river? Or do I jump in the river, grab the box, bring it to shore, unpack it, take all the things out of the box, put them in my backpack that's going to weigh me down, take them home, show my family? We have a choice of how we interact with the thought. So even if we can't control necessarily whether or not the thoughts are coming, what we do have influence over is whether or not we go grab it and carry it around with us and then let it influence how we see the world around us, which I think robs us of joy and happiness It is one of the things that gets in the way of being able to live our life. When we have bought a thought or hung on to a thought that is negative and allowed it to become a belief, it impacts how we interact with people and things in our world that are important to us.
Yeah, I like that analogy of the box, whether you're
Yeah.
just supposed to be curious about it,
Yeah.
think about it, but maybe you're not supposed to carry
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
that it contains. Yeah, so I'm interested to see what the
how-tos.
how-tos
Yeah.
further into the series.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. And keep in mind, though, one of the important pieces of the box analogy is that we're not wrestling with why the box is there, right? I think sometimes we can get in our own head about the thoughts we have. There's embarrassment and shame that, my goodness, if I'm having this thought, I must be a terrible person or I must be a terrible Christian. One of the helpful metaphors about the box in the river is that we're not questioning why it's there. The reality is it showed up. And thoughts are so similar that sometimes we'll be going about our day and have the most random, intrusive thoughts that come into our mind. And I think the key is beginning to be curious about those thoughts, beginning to label them as negative and unhelpful, and beginning to change the way that we interact with them.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here.
I look forward to future to getting into this more.
Yeah, me too. And hopefully you guys have a great discussion with your group or your individual study, and we'll see you next week.
Cool.
See ya.